Hello audio geeks and welcome back to the channel. I haven't posted for a while because of various problems, but hey ho, here I am back again and ready to share my passion for audio geekery with you. Now today we are looking at two products from Truthear, the IEMs, the budget IEMs that they've released recently, the Hola, and the DAC, Dongle DAC, that was released at the same time, the Shio. And both these were sent to me by Shenzhen Audio for evaluation. I haven't been paid for the reviews as always, so you can trust me. Now then, Truthear are a fairly new company. They launched last year with this, the Truthear Zero. Remember, 2022 was a year that every new IEM was called Zero. And these were tuned by Crinical and featured a subwoofer kind of dual driver arrangement, and they were tuned to Harman and sounded quite good. And at $50, £50, I thought they were a pretty good buy, although they were big and heavy IEMs, not the most comfortable. Later in the year they released these, the fabulous Truthear Hexa, and these are now my pick for around $100. I think these cost a bit less, about $80, but what you get here is a really excellently tuned and pretty good technical set of budget sub-$100 IEMs, and these are pretty much my everyday carry now, so I really like the Hexa. So let's look at the Hola first. So the Hola is pitched at the $20 price point. I think it's currently available on Shenzhen Audio for about $18 to $19, and it's meant to be, oh, upside down, it's meant to be a fairly smooth, warm, neutral sounding set of IEMs, and obviously in this price range it's going to compete with the likes of the current champs, the 7Hz Zeros. Here they are, look, still very frequently used by me. So let's have a look at these and see whether they justify their place amongst the sub-$20 pantheon. So these are the IEMs themselves. They constitute a 3D printed shell with an aluminium faceplate, and it's got a nice dinky pattern on it, which I quite like. Unlike the Zeros, these are very light and comfortable to wear. They've got nice rounded portions that sit within your ear, and they really weigh next to nothing. So unlike the Zero, my main criticism of those is that they were pretty uncomfortable. These are super comfortable to wear day in, day out. They have a 2-pin connection, as you can see, and the other great thing about the build in terms of these IEMs is that the cable is really much nicer than the one you get with the Zero and the much more expensive Hexa. It's a braided cable, but it's really pretty tangle proof, and it's got these bits that go over your ears that are really smooth, and all in all the microphonics on the cable are not too troubling. Yeah, it's a really nice cable. Now the nozzles, as I hope you can see, are quite wide. They've got a nice filter there that you can see to stop them getting gunked up, and you get a good selection of tips that come with the Hola. So you get two sets of silicon tips, one with a wide aperture, the other one with a smaller aperture, which will change the sound signature, and you also get some foam tips. So these tips come from a different set of IEMs. I can't remember which ones, but they just fit my ears better. But I think, you know, 7 different tips for less than $20 is a pretty good deal. But now we get to the important bit, which is how do these sound? And again, if we look at the graph, what we get is just a little bit of sub-bass uplift, which tapers down, so it's a sloping down bass signature, which means that you don't get too much bass bleed into the lower mids, but what you do get are nice warm lower mids. The bass itself is pretty good in terms of rumble. It's not the punchiest, but there's plenty of it, and it's reasonably well controlled and well mannered. Now we do get a little bit of upper mid-range extension, but it's not as extreme as something like, for example, the new Moondrop LAN, which I'll be looking at soon, or even the Truthear Zero, and the treble rolls off pretty rapidly. So this is certainly not an IEM for treble heads. What you get instead is a nice smooth listen. It's slightly warm, mid-range is fairly neutral, and the treble some people might find a bit lacking in terms of air, but what this also means is these are completely non-fatiguing. There's no sibilance, there's very little in the way of shoutiness. these are just a nice, smooth, relaxing listen. Technicalities wise, you won't get the most detail, you won't get the best instrument separation, and the soundstage is pretty narrow, but hey, look guys, $18. Yes, I know you're all going to ask, for $20, if you only had $20, should you buy the Hola or the 7Hz Zero? Look, I think it's a tough one. On the whole, I'm more of a fan of the sound signature of the Zero. I think they're a little bit more resolving. I think the treble's a little bit better, but by the same token, they can occasionally be very slightly shouty and very slightly fatiguing, depending on the music you're listening to. So if you want a really smooth listen, go for the Hola. If you want a little bit more liveliness and some slightly improved technicalities, then the 7Hz Zero are the one for you. Imaging in particular, if you're a gamer, is better on the Zeros. So now let's come on to the Shio, which is a dongle DAC and amp, and here it is in all its glory. It connects via a USB connector, and in the box you just get a USB-C to USB-C connector. So as long as your phone has USB-C, or using an iPad with USB-C or something, you'll be fine. If you're using an iPhone, of course, you'll need a Lightning to USB-C adapter, and there are plenty of those around. I use the FIO one, I think it's called the LT2 or something, that came with my BTR 5 2021, and it seems to connect very well. The unit itself feels fairly sturdy. I think it's aluminium, but it's covered with this kind of fake pleather textured wrap. It's a bit like a D-brand skin, I guess. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. I wish I was, but I'm not. And you can see the Truthear logo there. On the side there's a volume switch and a little indicator LED to tell you it's hooked up and powered up. Nothing on that side or that side. And the distinguishing feature here is that for $79 you've got both a single-ended 3.5mm output as well as a balanced 4.4mm output, which is really nice to see. And on that side, of course, just the USB-C input. This thing is really quite small. Look, here it is compared to the Hola IEM shell. You can see it's really compact and it's really light, so it's very easy to sling in your pocket, even with the connector. And it doesn't draw too much power, so sometimes if you use too high-powered a dongle DAC on your iPhone, you'll get a message saying this accessory is not compatible because it draws too much power. No such frustration with the Shio. It works really well, and it's got surprisingly decent power output via the particularly the balanced output. I've been even managing to drive my Sundaras, although they certainly don't get as much juice as they would like. The important thing about this is that you should go and apply the firmware update, which you can now download from the surprisingly easy to navigate Truthear website. And what that will do is enable independent volume control. And I think there's a good granularity, 60 steps. And this is one of my frustrations with how it comes out of the box, because if you just plug it in without updating the firmware, when you increase and decrease the volume, all it'll do is change the master volume on your phone, and that too by quite large steps. So I wouldn't advise that. I would definitely recommend that you update the firmware, and then you can control the volume in 2 stages on your phone and then fine-tune it using the independent volume control. This thing will handle most audio bit rates, so it goes all the way from 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz all the way to 32-bit 768 kilohertz, and it even does DSD256 if that's your thing. What it doesn't do, not that I'm bothered at all, is MQA decoding, but that's fine by me. You can see the specs on the box here, and one of the important things is there's very little background noise. So even when you're listening to the Shio using some fairly sensitive IEMs, you won't hear that annoying hiss, which is absolutely excellent in my book. So for $79, what do you get when it comes to sound quality? Well, it's certainly an improvement over the Apple dongle, which you'd hope it would be, as that only costs less than $10. And for the money, you get much more power to drive even quite demanding headphones. And you also get a very, very nice sound signature. I would describe this thing as fairly neutral, but very slightly on the warm side. It's not the most resolving, so compared to something like the Q-Style M15, which is still my main DAC on the go, this one doesn't have the same level of transparency when it comes to details, and it's slightly less neutral. What you get here is a bit like the Hola, really. What you get is a slightly smoother, more musical, if you like, slightly warm tone. And that pairs really nicely, paradoxically, with the 7Hz Zero, because that's a little bit brighter and a little bit more analytical. This pairing is very good. Annoyingly, given that they sent me both things together, it doesn't pair so well with the Hola because it accentuates the Hola's warmth. And generally, I think this is better suited to headphones that are a little bit brighter, perhaps have a little bit more treble, and then you're onto a winner. So for example, it pairs really well with the Hexa. In fact, I'd say this is an absolute dream pairing, and if you want to spend less than $200 on significantly upgrading your portable audio, I'd recommend the Hexa and the Shio. So look, two really good products from Truthear. I enjoyed listening to and reviewing both of them. Yeah, I'm fairly happy. I don't think either of these are award winners, but they are good value, and as such, I'd recommend both of them. Thanks for watching, guys. Good to see you after all this time. Look out for more videos coming up soon.